Hey there, I'm Jillian. Welcome back to Equefit. Today we're going to do part one of our video series about clipping. I know some of you live in areas like we do here in the Midwest, and we get that cold season coming and settling in on us. And so we have to do a little bit more for our horses in order to be able to work them comfortably and also help them to maintain their body temperatures in the colder weather. So I've got my friend Emily here with me, and she's going to talk about reasons why you would clip your horse, the different types of basic clip patterns, and also if you are looking for some clippers of your own, she's going to make some recommendations for you. Emily, take it away.
So your horse might have different reasons that you need to clip, either medical reasons or work-related reasons. So you're going to have different needs and different items you're going to look at for when you're clipping your horse. You can do anything from what we call a full body clip, which is going to be taking everything off your horse, to just very bare minimum to really help them release some of that heat that can be trapped while you're working under that big winter coat they can get.
So Emily, you talked about one of the clips that you liked in particular to do with your horse, and you talked about having a trace clip.
Yes.
And that was one of the variations. And right here we have, just for you to be able to take a peek at, we have some of the basic body clipping patterns for horses in winter months. And Emily just mentioned having a full body clip where basically you're taking everything off, to down here where you have a strip where you're just literally taking just a strip of hair off. So Emily, we've got all these different things to choose from. How would I know what I want to do with my horse and which clip is going to be the one that I should choose?
So your two biggest factors you're going to look at when you're clipping your horse is medically, if your horse has Cushing's or any other medical issue where they're gaining extra coat and they aren't releasing it, or they need to have a certain area clipped, is really going to be a big defining factor of what you're going to clip. The other thing that you're going to look at is your horse's physicality and your ability of riding them during the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're light riding your horse, but your horse is overheating while you are riding, you might want to look at one of the smaller trace clips so that you can still have most of that body hair to help them survive the cold, but it'll release that heat when you're working. And just varying degrees of where you're going to clip is what's going to define where you might want to look at clipping different patterns.
So if I've got my horse and maybe he's got a moderate or sort of a moderate workout during the winter, and I'm primarily riding as an English rider. So we might do a little bit of groundwork, we might be doing a little bit of flat work, and we also might do a little bit of jumping just to keep him in shape. So if I was looking at that, which one of these clips would you recommend?
I would probably go with either the hunt clip or the blanket or your standard trace. Those are the three that I would look at for that situation, because you're leaving the leg hair so that their legs stay warm while you're riding, especially if you're going to have any kind of mud or water, or if you are jumping and your horse knocks a pole. That hair is going to be a little extra just buffer there. And then it just depends on your horse's body condition and how well they sweat is what you're going to look at for the rest of this. So your trace clip, you're going to have your underside of your neck, and then you're kind of coming back and getting all those big spots that are going to release a lot of that heat, but you're still leaving a very big body base. If you have a horse that sweats heavily in the front end, you might want to look at the blanket clip, because you're still leaving a lot of that body hair to help hold that heat, but that's going to allow that neck to breathe and really just make it nicer for your horse. And same with the hunt clip, is if you're going to do a little more work, That leaves your saddle pad area, so you're going to have less irritation because sometimes your body clip can cause irritation if your horse is either sensitive or a little bit of mud, just because you are taking that protective layer away from your horse.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you make sure you clean your horse and keep an eye on things, you're not going to have any big issues with clipping and causing irritation.
Great. Well, I know that you mentioned to me before that when you go to clip your horse, you want to make sure that you do have a clean, dry horse before you start, or you're really going to jam up your clippers, no matter what kind of clippers you have. Now, Emily also has some different types of clippers here, and we'll talk a little bit about if you're beginning, if you're looking for a pair of good clippers to start out with, and just some of the things to think about if this is a new horse for you and you're not sure if that horse has ever been clipped before. There's some precautions that you might want to take. Why don't we start with those precautions, because that might be a good place.
So you always want to make sure when you're clipping, you are in a fairly clutter-free open area. So if something does happen, your horse has the option to safely get away, and you also have the option to be safe if they do panic, because everybody's safety should be everyone's number one key factor.
Absolutely.
I am a firm believer that safety is the key to everything. But you want to make sure if your horse stands in a cross tie, that you can cross tie them, but if it's the first time you are clipping your horse, I would try and get a friend, have them hold the horse, and then test out if they're good with the clippers, because they make noise, they vibrate, they feel funny, and then all of a sudden they're going to have a burst of cold air where there was no cold air. So you should always try to make sure your horse is used to it before you go and do the full thing, or you leave them tied up. So always try to phone a friend, have them help you. It's your safest bet if you don't know what your horse is used to. My horse, I know him well enough now that I know where I can do it safely on my own and I don't need help.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at some of those clippers, because I know that if I was going out and looking for a pair of clippers, if I don't necessarily have to do a full body clip, if I'm not looking at a horse that's, like a woolly mammoth, he's got a whole lot of fur to get through. But I just have, he's got probably about a medium length of hair that he brings in the winter. What you got?
So my favorite set of clippers is the Oster A5, and they come in a 1-speed or a 2-speed. I don't have a preference on 1 or 2. When clipping horses, you're always going to use your faster speed. So getting the 1-speed doesn't make a difference. Getting the 2-speed, you're always going to be in the higher gear.
Is there a difference in the price and the cost of them?
Usually the 2-speeds do cost a little more because these are used a lot of times in dog grooming, and that's where you're getting your 2-speed from, is you can use the lower speed on a dog. But horsehair, because of the thickness, you're gonna need the higher speed. And that just is going to make your blades move faster to actually cut your hair, because your blade is 2 different pieces. It's your front and then your back plate, and your front plate is actually moving and cutting hairs while your back plate is staying still.
Now, how much noise does that actually make?
I feel the Oster A5s are not horribly noisy, but it definitely, if you have music going in your barn, you're gonna have to turn it up.
Okay.
It's definitely a louder clipper. You can find ones that say they're silent, but there's always going to be some form of noise. Personally, the A5s, I think, are a durable, good clipper. Yes, they make a little bit of noise. They have some weight to them, but I like the weight because if I accidentally drop it or I have something happen, they don't seem to break as easily.
Oh, okay.
There are other companies that make ones that are almost identical to this or have just a different body shape, use the same sort of blade, but they either have a plastic body or just slight variations to this. And I feel that I've broken those more than I've ever broken a pair of A5s. I've actually bought a lot of my A5s as a secondary owner. I can find a refurbished pair and they still run just like new.
Great.
So these, for your money, you're gonna get a good clipper, and you can get more blades than you could ever need. So you can get different sizes, different styles. You can get what we call a wide blade, which we have the wide blade versus the normal size blade. So you can cut more hair at one time than you can, but it's the same exact blade other than the one is almost double your body space. So you can do a little more room without having to go back and clip too many times.
Mm-hmm. So what if I do have a horse now that, say I have a horse that might be going into a little bit of Cushing's and he's not shedding that hair out, especially at the end of the winter going into spring, and he's still looking really woolly. Is there a different type of clipper that you would use to help him release some of that fuzz?
So you can get what we call a full body clipper, and these almost look like what you would use to shear a sheep, and they're basically the same model but have a different blade to them. But these are, in my opinion, they're very heavy, they're very bulky. It can be hard to get into smaller places because you're looking at a fairly wide head and you can't make that blade any smaller. I also feel that these are a little more on the loud side just because they are an industrial clipper. But if you have horses with Cushing's, or you have horses with a super, super dense, thick, coarse hair, these are going to be your best bet because they're going to be able to cut through almost anything.
Okay. So now we are talking about very functional clipping right now. So we're not really talking about show clipping because that's a totally different type of patterns that you're looking at. But could we use either one of these if we did want to take our horses to like local horse shows and clean them up and look very nice and presentable?
My A5s are my utility vehicle of clippers. I can do everything from body clip to show clip and make a horse look as good as I can with those clippers. I'm a firm believer that those utility clippers of that A5 standard will give you a good cut as long as you take care of your blades, are small enough you can get those details in, but they're still industrial enough that you're gonna be able to get through a lot of bulk.
Mm-hmm. And what if I just want to, just like around the barn, I just really want to clean my horse up just a little bit. But I don't necessarily need to do like a body clip on them, but I do want to make them look presentable. Like, the fuzzy things that come out of their ears and the whiskers that kind of go everywhere and the goat hairs that stick up on their hair. What could I do with those?
So they actually sell really small, tiny clippers that have a very small blade. They're built for those detail small spots. They don't have a big motor. Most of them are either rechargeable or battery operated. You can put them in your pocket. I believe most of them call them pocket clippers. And they make for a very easy, quick time that you can get in, trim some small things. If you have a horse with an injury and you need to clean around the injured area because they have hair getting in the injury, the pocket clippers are a great thing to have just in case, because you can clean up those edges and they're small and you're not going to have to worry about anything else.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Emily. So that is going to polish off our part 1 of our video series on clipping. Join us for part 2 and you'll get to see Emily show us, and she's going to demonstrate a trace clip on her horse Sketty. So make sure you follow us and join us for part 2 of our clipping series. See you later.